All right, thanks so much for introducing me. Hello, everybody. Good morning. How are you? How are you? Say something, guys. This is supposed to be exciting, energetic, enthusiastic event, right? For innovation and startups. So let's act like it. Act like it. All right. I am Seoul Ri. I am the executive VP at LG Electronics. I'm in charge of innovation and creating new businesses for the future growth areas of LG. Um, by the way, I thought long and hard whether I should speak in Korean and English. I decided to speak in English because 100% of what I do is based in the United States. And the businesses we launch is in the United States. And I wanted to also test whether the AI translator that you guys may be tapping into is going to do a good job translating my English or not. Okay. I'm going to talk about what we call journey of innovation today. The reason I say journey is because I want to first talk about me a little bit. Not because I want to brag about me, but because to explain, to have you understand why we are doing what we do, why LG Nova is doing what we do. You need to first understand my path, the road that I have walked through in my career. Okay, so I had a sort of like an interesting journey of my own life. I went to school, I got a degree, and then after I got my degree, I started my own company, a startup. That was back in year 2001, and I don't know how many of you remember what it was like in 2001. In the venture capital world, it was called the nuclear winter. That was right after the NASDAQ crash that essentially wiped out all kinds of investment opportunities. And I was stupid, probably. I was stupid to come up with ideas to start a company. And then, and that was what we call IoT companies, Internet of Things. We didn't use the word called Internet of Things at that time, but there was IoT, one of the first of its kind. I had an extremely hard time raising money. I probably visited, I don't know, 50 venture capitals, pitched to 50 of them, because nobody was investing Zippo at that point, because it was right after the NASDAQ crash after 2000. But I raised money successfully, and then I raised a bunch of multiple rounds of funding and eventually sold the company. What I learned at that point is that if I were a startup, and if I had money that I can tap into, I probably could be more productive, like twice more productive, because I probably spend 50% of my time just to raise money. And what a waste of time. Okay, so that's one thing I learned. And then after that, I somehow, I don't know how, White House wanted what they called IoT expert. It was like IoT was like AI of these days. It was a big thing at the time. It was like emerging growth area for the whole world and the whole the U.S. So they wanted to have someone in the White House who is expert on that. So they called me, and I said, all right, why not? Let me give it a shot. So I joined a program called the White House Innovation Fellow, and I was one of the two people working for White House that specialized in IoT at the time. I learned a lot there too. And what I learned over there was this. There are two things I really learned. One of them was the power of brand. Power of brand. If you are a startup, I assume some of you are, extremely hard to penetrate the customer because nobody knows you. And I had the same problem. When I was doing a startup myself, and then when I went to a big company or customer and I say, I am XYZ, I am Seoul Ri, and the first response usually you get is, who are you? Who the hell are you? That was very different when I worked for the White House and then said, well, I work for the White House, and I work on IoT. And then everybody jumped on it. So that's when I first realized the power of brand is extremely important in doing any kind of new businesses. So third, what I also realized that in IoT, it's same with AI, and we have a lot of talks about AI these days, and what are the infrastructure, for example, what is necessary to do to become a huge AI business. And AI is just not an algorithm. It needs infrastructure. It needs hardware. It needs maintenance. It needs a data center. It's almost like a multi-industry collaboration to make AI work. IoT was same thing. I mean, you need the hardware, you need the software, you need the networking, you need data management, you need the cloud system, and the decision-making system to make it work. So one thing I realized when I work in that is that, okay, if you want to really create a momentum in your business, you need to collaborate. You cannot do this yourself. It's almost impossible to do a heavy lifting yourself when you are a startup, which doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of people, and doesn't have a lot of name value out there. Okay, so to create a new business, you need to really focus on collaboration. What you do not have, you can get or you should get from somewhere else. So that is why I just explained to you, okay, through this process of my journey, I realized a few things that are necessary to create new business, and that's what became the fundamental foundation of what I call LG Nova. Okay? So, what is LG Nova? It is a division of LG Electronics, and LG Electronics is obviously a large company, one of the largest appliances manufacturer in the world. But at the same time, LG Electronics realizes that the future growth area, there are a lot of opportunities in the future growth area, not just in appliances and TVs. We are number one in appliances. We are the best. But we also want to do more than appliances and TVs of the world. Okay, so that's why they created LG Nova, and they wanted me to figure out what we need to do in the future. It's almost like you are creating new businesses inside of a $70 billion company. All right, so when I was tasked to do it, we are located in Santa Clara. Okay, how do we create the future of new LG or new LG Electronics? And there was actually a very similar problem you faced when you were starting a new company yourself. Okay, and because we are, well, before I talk about that, let me just give you a snapshot of where we are. We are based in Santa Clara, and also we build we have what we call venture building business. We create new businesses, but we create new business in a very unique way. We have ecosystem and partnership structure. We have a very unique expertise which combines private sector and public sector expertise. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about it, why we need it. So our mission is to spin out new companies. It may sound a little weird, but you got to think about, like, LG is a huge company. LG also creates new businesses. The way we do that is we actually create new legal entity, spin out those businesses as sort of like a LG owned, but not 100% owned, LG sort of like supported new businesses. That's what we do. We do spin out about 2 of them per year. And to do it, which I'm going to explain how, we work with about 1,000 startups every year. About 1,000, about 1,500. And then we select about 30 of them. We get seriously engaged with them to collaborate and create new businesses for LG in the future. So it may sound like, how would a startup work with LG to create new LG business? And I'm going to explain to you and why that's a win-win model for both of them. And we have been doing this for the last 5 years. So we have about 5,000 startups that we have either worked with or had some kind of engagement over the course of the last 5 years in all of the world. We also talk about capital alliance partners a little bit. So, okay, LG wanted to create new future. LG wants to create new future beyond what they are doing today. But where? Where are you going to create new future? That's actually a big question, right? Because if you don't know which businesses, which sector you want to create, how can you create a new business? So we looked at it very, again, long and hard. And some of you may probably heard about what LG calls ABC strategy. That's a sort of like a LG-wide focus area for the future growth. A is AI, B is bio, C is clean tech. Now, we are part of LG Electronics, so we don't really do bio. We are not going to make new drugs, but healthcare in general is an extremely exciting area. Okay, so it's not exactly bio per se, the bio, but there are a lot of technologies that we can create in the healthcare area. So that's one of the areas that we have started focusing on. Now, even in the clean tech. So clean tech means a lot of different things. It can mean clean water, clean air, everything. What we focus on is a software, a solution, and a platform that can help save energy or make the energy more efficiently distributed and consumed. So that is our approach in the clean tech area. So LG's ABC strategy is there, but that's not really the only factor in deciding the sector, because we can do whatever we want. We can choose whatever sector we want. But if there's no market, then frankly, that's really nothing there. That really doesn't really make any sense. So we looked at actual market very carefully. That's where this 5,000 startup ecosystem is helping us. When we bring in those startups, we almost bring them in a random manner. What I mean by random manner is we want startups to tell us what is the hottest market. We want to use those startups statistically to give us indication of where the world is going. And very interestingly, when we started a few years ago, actually those three sectors like AI and health tech and clean tech, those were the most widely adopted area for a lot of startups. We have a statistical analysis of it. So it's sort of like confirmed that our ABC, LG's ABC's strategy is pretty well aligned with what startups are thinking. So great. So we looked at three of them, and that's what we focus on: AI, health tech, and clean tech. Now, I talked about my experience of the collaboration, the power of a collaboration. And when I was working with the US government, so I also wanted to create new businesses using the collaboration. And here's a more practical reason. LG Electronics, one of the largest companies in the world. Do we have everything? No. Now, if you are a startup, you always seek new resources. You want to also have new resources. However, you think that, okay, if you're LG, you probably have everything. You are wrong. LG doesn't have everything, okay? LG is very good at what it does very well. But if you are going to jump into new sectors like AI, health tech, and clean tech, LG is not very different than the startup that doesn't really know or doesn't have a lot of expertise, okay? So in our world, in my world, I had to also work with what we got in LG. We didn't have a lot of expertise. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of market penetration. That's where we said, okay, let's work with the startups who already have gone through this process in technology, market penetration. They may not have the brand that LG has, but they probably know much more about this market than LG. So that's where it came down to. So we wanted to create this sort of like alliance and collaboration mechanism. And then we wanted to create new business out of this collaboration. That was the genesis of LG Nova. And that's why we work with virtually everybody. We work with the startups. We work with the investors. Oh, by the way, we also accept money from other investors. It's weird, right? LG Electronics, we create our own business, and LG puts money, big chunk of money, but we also work with outside investors. Why? Why? LG is a large corporation, but we don't know everything. Even in the decision process of which business we're going to choose to go with, LG may not know everything. Other investors may have more knowledge and more expertise and more insights than LG Electronics. So we acknowledge that. I mean, we are good, but we don't know everything. So that's why we want to work with other investors. And money talks. When investors put money in, they put money because they really think it's going to be successful. Otherwise, why would they put their money in? And that's what it needed. So that's why we work with investors as well. So, and we also work with government and state. And we're going to talk a little bit about why we work with the government and state. But virtually, we work with everybody, and we want to create businesses together with that. Hopefully, it's going to come down, create one of the best businesses that you can think of. So, we talked about AI, health tech, clean tech, and we also started focusing on mobility as well. You know that LG Electronics also has a vehicle solutions division which focuses on mobility, and we started exploring that possibility as well. Okay, so one thing that we want to do is we want to work with all those startups in the world, and we are doing it. If you are a startup, you probably want to pay more attention to what I'm going to explain next. So this is just a mapping of all the startups that we have either worked with or we somehow engage. The engage is a very light word. Sometimes we don't necessarily engage seriously. Sometimes we just get messages from them, we interact with them. But we roughly have worked with about 5,000 startups in the world, one area or the other. And about half of them are in the United States, or North America, including Canada. About 30% of them are in Europe, including Israel. About 20% of them are in Asia, Australia, and Africa. So that's a rough distribution. Obviously, we want to also see more startups from here in Korea to work with us. So how does it work? How do you work with the investors as well? This is important. We have two types of investors that we work with. One, the investors who is willing to co-invest in the new LG businesses that LG Nova is creating. I told you that we are creating new businesses for the LG. So that's something LG puts in money, but other investors also puts in money to grow the business together. There's a second type of investors who puts money into the startups that we collaborate. So why would the startups work with LG? Pretty simple question. I mean, they want to work with LG because it could potentially boost their business, their customer base. But at the same time, if you do it well, we also have a group of investors that is interested in investing into the startups that work with LG. Okay, so that is the two types of investors that we are working with. And why do we need it? Because as I said, LG is a large company, but we don't have everything. We need that other investor expertise, and we need their money as well to help out the startups and help out our own business creation. So that's why we do it. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of West Virginia. How many of you even know heard about state of West Virginia? Raise your hands. State of West Virginia, raise your hands. Come on, guys. Really? Only a few of you heard about West Virginia? West Virginia. There's a John Lennon, I think? No? There was this song. Anyway, it's a very small and probably one of the, I would say, least affluent states in the United States. But they are extremely interested in digital transformation themselves. Their main industry is coal mining, and their main industry is sort of like an old-fashioned manufacturing. They want to upgrade their state. They want to invite software industry. They want to create this high growth area, jobs and industries in the West Virginia. That's where LG Nova comes in. So we partner with them. We say, we're going to work with you. We're going to create those future growth area industry in your state working with you. And at the same time, the states are going to support what LG Nova does. As a first customer, they're doing two things. First, they obviously give us money to do it. Secondly, they are willing to become the first customer. How many of you here have done startups before or now? Startups? No one? I thought this was a startup fair. Maybe not. Okay. When you're doing a startup, yes, you need the money. You need the money, of course. But you also need, probably more desperately, the first customer. That's the toughest thing. That's the most difficult thing to gain. When you have a product, right? Yeah, you thought that was going to change the world. This is the biggest thing in the world. But then, when you actually bring it to a customer, they're going to start giving you a hard time. A lot of complaints and a lot of input. So the first customer is always tough. When you get the first customer, now the ball starts rolling. That's how it works. So it's extremely important to secure a large group of potential customers so that they're ready to even test out your product when it comes out of your business. That's what West Virginia is committing to. So that's why we agreed, okay, we're going to even set up an office over there, and we're going to work with it. So this is how it works in general. We work with the startups, work meaning that we talk to startups. There are again, thousands of them coming into us. And then we have this vetting process, filtering process, and we come down to dozens of them. And then we talk to them, and we brainstorm with them what kind of new business LG can create working with those startups. That's the brainstorming process. But then we have our own EIRs. So these are the experienced startup executives, those guys who have done exits before. Frankly, they already made a lot of money. Not all of them, but some of them made a lot of money. But they're so excited to do new startups and new business in Silicon Valley. We bring them in. We hire them, actually. They are the future CEOs. This is important. They are hired to become the CEO of the future LG company. And they are come up with the business proposals. And then we have a long vetting process, like POC, proof of concept. And then we have all those kind of evaluation process. We have our internal funding process. And eventually, some of them becomes a real business. And when they become a real business, then we spin them out. That's how it works. So this is sort of like a 800 miles view of how the process works. It's essentially a funneling process. Funneling process in the sense that you start with a large amount of ideas, but you test it out through market, investors, startup partners, and then we shrink them down into a certain amount of numbers that we literally put millions of dollars into. And in this process, startups and investors plays critical role, not just validating LG's business, but also creating the collaboration mechanism. For example, startups may have a very interesting medical sensor, but then LG Nova creates a software platform that can use those medical sensors as a solution. So that is how the collaboration works. And then we go to market together. And then sometimes we share the revenue. Sometimes then we obviously start to make money by selling their own sensors working with us, for example. So that is really the model we have. And then once you go through all this process, the goal is, we say stages 07 and 09. That stage is where it is done outside of LG. Which is the spin-off process. After stage 6, it's not LG Electronics anymore, by the way. It belongs to LG, so it's sort of like considered as a subsidiary, but it's not LG. It's a separate entity. It's out there, and then they have their own structure, governing structure. There's their own C Corp. C Corp is, it's a C Corp. And then eventually, what is the goal? We want to create a dozen of them, and then see at least a couple of them go for IPO, become a unicorn. We call it NOVACORN. A billion-dollar company in the new area that LG Electronics has not done before. And then that new company can become the future of LG Electronics. So that is the idea here. Well, it's a dream, it's a vision. I don't think that's going to be always, I mean, there's no guarantee here, but that's what you're going for, and that's what LG Nova does. So we actually have two companies who already spun out through this process. So you said, oh yeah, that's a great theory. Then have you ever done anything like that? Yes. We actually has gone through all this process. We spun out two of them already. One is in the healthcare. It's called the Prime, it's a Prime Focus Health. They do remote healthcare and working with the hospitals and reduce the cost of the hospitals, the chronic condition management. Okay, so that's what they do. You see the two companies over there called the Binai and the Chemtai. Those are the startups that this company works with. I told you that we work with the startups and they become our partner. And we go to market together to create new business. So yes, Prime Focus is LG company. But in doing that, we have those startups that are closely working with them. That's how it works. And they already have a customer, which is Marshall Health Network. That's that's the second largest health network in West Virginia. I talked to you about West Virginia. Why we do it? Because that's the first customer. They're willing to become the first customer. Extremely important, because we can verify this new business, and we can create grow the new business from there. Second venture we just spun out about a month ago is called the PADO Orchestration. It's AI company focusing on specifically on the energy distribution for data centers. So it's weird, right? Data centers are necessary to create AI, and that we are building solutions to help those data centers using AI. But that's how it works. So this is the second one we just spun out. It's working with a startup called the Therapy. It's one of those startups that we are partnering with. It also had the first pilot customer called the Mara. It's one of the sort of like a mid-size, not the largest, mid-size data center operator in the United States. They have about 20 data centers across the United States. So that's how it works. So I think my time's up. I wanted to thank everybody. I know this must have been a little bit boring for some of you, but I just wanted to introduce you that, hey, this LG Nova we are trying to create the future of LG. I don't know whether it's going to be successful or not, but I'm so excited to give it a shot, and I'm hoping to that with all of you here. Thank you very much.